case is based on some allegations.
But I think it's important that I have a chance to express the views of the European Commission as regards the proceedings apparently started by the chief prosecutor of Turkey against the AK party. I must say that in a normal European democracy, political issues are debated in the parliament and decided through the ballot box, not in the courtrooms. It's also a fundamental European principle that we respect the separation of powers. In other words, the executive shouldn't meddle into the court's work, while the legal system shouldn't meddle into democratic politics. I hope that this incident will not consume so much political energy that it would delay or distract attention from the EU-related reforms that enhance fundamental freedoms of Turkish citizens and reinforce the rule of law in all walks of life and all corners of the country. I trust that the Turkish government will nevertheless focus on these reforms and use its political energy to advance the reforms so that we can see real progress in the EU accession process.
Is the Commission a sign that shows Turkey need already
membership?
Well, we all have in our respective countries sometimes prosecutors that use somewhat bizarre elements of our respective legal frameworks. But this takes the concept of bizarre application of laws to astronomical heights, I would say. Really, I mean, it is. I mean, democracy is there. AK Party is a solidly democratic party that is pursuing a solidly European reform agenda. And that should be respected. And we know that there are those who are trying to break things down or who have, I think, extremely exaggerated, extremely inflated fears for the future of the secular character of Turkish society. We don't see those fears. We don't see the reasons for it. And they are evidently prepared to use even the most bizarre instruments because of that. But it is bizarre in the extreme.
In the back.
Ladies and gentlemen, as things now stand, I hope, and I can perhaps add I expect, that work on a new strategic concept will commence at our next summit in 2009, NATO's 60th anniversary. Anniversaries in NATO are not just about past achievements. They are first and foremost, or that's what they should be, about the future. With the new US administration in office, a new French approach vis-à-vis NATO, and a new dynamic in the European integration process, I believe that our 2009 summit should produce a short but powerful document that reaffirms the enduring fundamentals of transatlantic security cooperation and lay down some parameters for a new strategic concept. For want of a better term, let me call this document something as you and I know, at least I know, that 13 or 14 working days are a long time in politics. And we are about 13 or 14 working days away from the Bucharest summit, and I can assure you that both as far as Ukraine and Georgia's map aspirations are concerned, as well as on the name issue, if I may qualify it this way, where NATO, by the way, has no direct role to play. Let's also underline that fact. There's no direct role for NATO or its Secretary General on the name issue. But I know that a lot of activity is going on also on the name issue. I do hope that the summit will show results in this regard. I've tried in my speech at least to underline NATO, say that the sun is shining, and I know already now what the outcome will be. The outcome, I hope, would be or should be perspective. The outcome should be perspective for, hopefully, the 3 Western Balkan nations who are knocking on NATO's door. Perspective for Bosnia-Herzegovina and Montenegro, because we should look at the Balkans from a regional perspective. And let me add very quickly perspective for Serbia as well. So I do hope that we'll see invitations in Bucharest to speak about the Balkans first. I do hope that we see a qualitative in strengthening, I should say, in our relationship with Montenegro and Bosnia-Herzegovina. And I do hope that a strong signal will be sent, despite the discussion going on in Serbia at the moment, that, in our opinion, the future of Serbia lies in Euro-Atlantic integration and not in sullen nationalism. And the Serbs will finally decide themselves in the elections on NATO-Russia. There's only one key word I see in this relationship, and that is engagement, with a capital E. It is my strong conviction that this is a very important relationship. I even go one step further. I think NATO cannot do without Russia, and as Russia cannot do without NATO. So I attach great importance to this relationship, and I attach also great importance of discussions on important issues like missile defense. But let me conclude that for me the word engagement is key. That does not mean that of course red lines drawn by others can ever be accepted by NATO. NATO decides itself on its enlargement. There are no vetoes or droit de regard. But I think we still have many areas in which the Russian Federation and NATO can work very well together. And again, I'm looking forward to a constructive and interesting NATO-Russia Council in Bucharest.
Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you in Bucharest in a few weeks. Thank you. Now, if everybody could...
Romania and current candidate for the Prime Minister in Romania, Mircea Joana. Mars reactions, Foreign Minister of Latvia, and Mark Grossman. More interesting, complicated perhaps than their predecessors. And we have a different...
Jaap, Scheffer had said, but I do believe...
Have more of a profound discussion and a new strategic rationale for doing it. For me, it's obvious. It is about the peace and prosperity. As long as we haven't brought in firmly and secured a stable direction for countries like the Ukraine, Turkey, Serbia, to take 3 swing states in important parts of Europe, there is an element of uncertainty in the overall European situation that could come back and haunt us at some period in the future, and thus possibly also threaten to unravel what we've already achieved.
Mircea Joana, in less than 3 weeks.
As President Bush has put it in the famous Warsaw speech. So what we are doing now in Bucharest, we are doing a small piece of what needs to be done. The Adriatic 3, I hope that the Macedonian name should be somehow addressed. It will be a pity for this country not to join. But I firmly believe that Bucharest should be not just a Adriatic 3 summit, should be also be a clear commitment for future enlargement towards Georgia, towards Ukraine, of course, if these countries and peoples really want that. What I believe would be different from the previous
practical nature, I think that we can advise our friends in Georgia and Ukraine that, first of all, stay on message, be consistent, try to be even better than everyone expects you to be. And that was our approach in early years of our process of integration into European Union and NATO. That there were people saying that
A little bit about it discussed yesterday in the session with the BBC. There's Afghanistan, and there's energy security, and there's counterterrorism, and there's climate change. It seems to me every single one of those new issues is relevant to NATO. It's relevant to the European Union. It's relevant to the transatlantic relationship. And as the United States considers how to deal with all of those issues, I can't imagine that it will deal with them any other way than through these institutions. And I think that was part of the message of the Secretary General. Final point. I believe that any
German debate is the role of Russia. And my personal view is that there cannot be a Russian veto on that. So if these countries are ready for a membership action plan, they should get it, even if Russia would be against it.
Great. And echoed from
the member of the club, and we will not be the member of the club anytime in the future. And this is a great problem. Please do not expect of us to be happy about seeing more and more countries becoming members of a club where we do not belong and where we cannot influence the process, the decision-making process. My colleague from Romania cited Mr. Putin from the meeting of 2002 being